The way SuprOrdinary got started is not as artistically romantic as you might think. I think if you can make something that you would enjoy yourself, there's an audience for it. There's people just like you who would enjoy the thing that you like. If you're already compromising a little bit at the beginning, then it's going to be easy to start hating the thing that you're doing.
I spent the last year trying to rediscover my love for the game, creating new things like media, breaking all the rules of design, trying to make things for me again, not for you, not for money. And during that time, I found someone who was on the same journey, Devin Matthews. He's an art director at Buck, this massively talented design agency out of Los Angeles. And last summer, he debuted the first episode of his YouTube series, SuprOrdinary. The concept was simple, a documentary about a seasoned designer who wanted to rediscover his creative inner child. And he kicked it off by rebranding his favorite local sandwich shop, unsolicited and completely free. And within 4 weeks, his brand new YouTube channel had tens of thousands of new subscribers, hundreds of thousands of views, and he was getting featured in the press. He would go on to wrap season 1 with 3 more episodes, each one creatively more unhinged than the last, and instantly became my favorite creator of the year. Like me, he's on a pursuit to tell creative stories and to surface the soul that we seem to have lost in the hustle of social media. For the next hour, you're going to hear from 2 designers who are equal parts storytellers, creatives, and clueless adventurers who are trying to figure out how to balance fulfillment and making money in the noisy era of hyperinformation. This is State of Play, a podcast where I'm trying to figure out what fuels some of the most interesting designers and builders. Let's get into it. Like truly, I've been telling the community, the Discord, like, yo, Devin, everyone's sharing every time SuprOrdinary comes out with a new episode. You've been the talk of the town in our community for a long time because I really admire the work that you've put out there. But the other thing that really resonated with me was the fact that I see so much in what you're doing in what I'm doing. Meaning, like, we've got this career that we've worked with different brands. We've got this thing that we've, for all intents and purposes is established. And yet there's this other area, and specifically for you and I, it's media, where we are kind of rediscovering what we love about the game. And it's like, we're just taking some risks, and we're just kind of like remembering why we do this in the first place. And I kind of have to ask you, there's like a stubbornness, I think, in both of us here. When you move between both of those worlds, where do you feel, I guess, most yourself creatively?
I remember going through the college experience and everything. I remember very specifically this like moment where I did like a graphic design poster, but it was very much illustration. Like I illustrated the whole thing and there wasn't hardly any type in it. And there was this big debate whether it was like, is this illustration or is this graphic design? And to me, I was kind of like, oh, like, does it matter? Like, am I solving the problem? And I think it kind of like stuck with me. Like, why does there have to be this like, oh, this is design or this is art? A lot of the time, it is a lot of the same, and the lines do get blurry. A lot of people say like, oh, if you're doing it for a client or if you're doing it for yourself, I was like, well, not really though, because when you're making art, the client is the audience, and it's like, of course, you're always going to be making stuff that you enjoy personally, but if you're trying to make something that's going to make a difference to someone or move somebody, you have a client, you have an audience that you're making something for. So I do remember kind of early on wrestling with like, the whole design is a designer art kind of thing. And I think as I got in the industry, I liked to try and like push that a bit. Most of those experiments don't make it through the first round, because there is kind of like oh, this is the way things are done. This is the way we're gonna do things. But I think that's what excited me most about starting SuprOrdinary was even on YouTube, there's a way things have kind of been done, or at least now there's kind of like a lingo of how a YouTube video looks and everything. And I got excited about switching that up a bit and trying to push what a YouTube video might look like. And I'm not saying I figured it out. I think there's a lot of things to learn along the way for sure. And there's probably a good reason YouTube videos are made the way they are, and I'll probably learn that the hard way, but there's no reason not to try and blur those lines a bit.
Is SuprOrdinary a project that you made entirely for yourself, or were you thinking about, like, the audience or the end user at all?
Well, the way SuprOrdinary got started is not as artistically romantic as you might think. It was me trying to find a way to pay bills. So our daughter, when she was first born, she had a heart condition and was in the hospital for a long time. And all these bills in my life started piling up. And I was working as an art director at Buck, and we were living in LA at the time, which is not a cheap place to live. And I was just like, man, like I cannot keep up financially. And even if I get promoted, it just felt like it was going to be drops in the bucket. It wasn't going to change our lives dramatically. So I was like, okay, I need to find some way to make some extra cash. I looked at some like pretty random stuff. Initially, my wife's a nurse, and I found out you can like sell your feces for like testing, and I was like, that is like, you talk about what's the word? What's the word?
The
Income.
hustle? You're hustling there for sure.
No, yeah, hustling in the bathroom. No, just income that you don't have to think about. I can't think of the word right now.
Oh, passive income or
Yeah, like
something? Yeah,
passive
yeah.
income. How passive can you get? It's something you do all day, every day, anyways. So I actually had like looked into it, as embarrassing as that might be, and my wife probably doesn't want me to share that. But then I was like, maybe I'll try to find something that I'm actually using the talents I've spent years developing instead of just something that any human can do. Started looking into making graphic design courses, um, which and I wanted to do it in a way that was like different. I wanted it to be extremely entertaining to where you were learning, but it was also like you just enjoyed the learning process so much. So I started thinking about all these, how do I teach this concept? How do I teach contrast and balance? And I started coming up with these big, exciting projects that were like, I could teach balance by doing this big, crazy thing, and that would like be super memorable. And then I just started realizing I got so excited about these projects that I was like, if I'm gonna do it, why don't I just try doing the thing that I really want to do, which is creating this like entertaining format. And so that's kind of like the genesis of SuprOrdinary. It started out as on the more educational side, and then I just decided first I'm going to just try to do exactly what I want to do, which is more on the entertaining side. It's like creative entertainment, I guess you could say. I think there's a lot of good nuggets in there to learn as well. It's definitely not, there isn't any educational bits in there. For the most part, I just wanted to focus on, okay, how do I make this the most interesting, most engaging thing for those who are creative and can find inspiration?
While it might not be an educational tutorial in format, I mean, it was an incredible call to arms to get out there and rediscover creativity. I mean, it came at a time in my life which was like just comically timely. And I found it immediately, and you've become my favorite, dare I say, filmmaker of this year. Really,
Thank
like
you.
the things I mean, truly, and I don't have to tell you that. I think you've gone through a whirlwind of finding the people this resonates with very quickly. You did have the audience in mind. You're like, I want to teach people, but I want to do it my way. So there's like an element of like self-fulfillment, but like you were hoping like, hey, I hope this reaches the right people in the right way.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of, especially with, our internet age and social media and everything. Back in the day, that might have not been as easy to do because most of the time you're confined to your own circle of people or your own, location and everything. But now it's like start there. If you're someone trying to start, like don't worry about what you think people are gonna like. First make something that you think you'll like. And one, it's gonna help you not get burnt out because man, it is an uphill battle trying to make some of this stuff on your own because you're playing all the parts, starting out.
Speaking of being a one-man band, I mean, you basically are. I think you had told me in the past. Tell me the makeup of the team behind the first season of SuprOrdinary.
It's me. Well, no. So when I did episode 1 and episode 2 was basically 100% me, other than obviously in episode 2, you see my brother. I made him come along for the ride to make the art piece. But all the filming, all the editing, coming up with the ideas. In the first one, there's a lot of design. I did all the design by myself, and it was exhausting. So this is another bit of good advice, I think. When I first started, I think my whole thing was I wanna just be able to, like, own something. Like, I wanna be able to make something that's all me, that I can see the creative vision from beginning to end and not have to, like, compromise and just see what I can do. And I think that was a big part of it. Was like, I just wanted to see what I could do, which I felt like that's exactly what that did. And then I quickly realized that if I wanted this to be sustainable, I needed to be able to find help and accept help. So I wouldn't have done it any other way. I think it helped me find a voice and find how I wanted to like present myself creatively online, which I think if I would have been working with other people, it would have been easy to get, buried under other people's ideas and everything. So that part of it was good. I think now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I found my voice a little bit. I figured out what an episode looks like. Now I need to find the help. And so I'm like trying my brother, I pretty much got him recruited in as like number 2 guy because he thinks a lot like me. Um, but yeah, it's a balance. I do think when it comes to collaboration, I have mixed feelings on collaboration sometimes because the worst thing you can hear when you go into like a meeting is like, okay, let's sit here and brainstorm. It's like, who's gonna come up with good ideas? I don't know. At least that's not how I think. I like to go back, think about something, come back and present some ideas, hear other people's ideas that they've been thinking about, and then start spitballing off each other's ideas. But most of the time when it's like, okay, this is a brainstorming meeting, the most vocal people get heard, and the people who might not be as vocal, they kind of just sit back and be like, okay, well, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I'm just gonna like, let's go with their idea or whatever. So I'm also trying to figure out how, the best way to get the most out of people when it comes to collaboration, which is like everyone's always trying to figure that out, but
It's so tough to think about the incentive structures for people who are trying to seek creative fulfillment, and that's a lot of people who are on like who are producers of creative work, right? It's like, yes, we need money. Like we want money, but we need money. And then like once the need is fulfilled, yeah, let's add the nice like I want a little more money. I want to live a little bit comfortably, but it's so much more than that. It's like I want to make sure that I have agency in this vision that I have in my head to bring to life. I want to make sure that I'm part of something a little bit bigger than me. I want to and so we have I'm at the place where you're at in terms of, for a long time, this whole media operation for me was, me. And then I found someone and they were around for a long time. And now we've grown the team a little bit. And I've had to learn a lot of these things about, how do I make this interesting for other people? This is interesting for me, but how can I and so one of the ways I've had to do that is I'm like, what do you enjoy working on? And what are some of the things that you love? And then if I have to like really listen, someone's like, that you have an episode coming out with this thing, I would love to be like the creative kind of director on that. And I'm like, okay, like let's do that. Let's talk about what that means.
that was actually a question I wanted to ask you because you're further down the road than I am with a lot of this. And right now, me and my brother, we think very similarly. Like we have a very similar sense of humor. We'll start spitballing off an idea, and we can just kind of like, yeah, and we get it. But as we start bringing other people in, hopefully that'll be the case. As someone trying to shepherd a creative vision, it's you want the people who can, you know, not just follow exactly what you're saying, but come up with their own, creative ideas and everything. Those are the type of people you really want. But those are the type of people who like eventually kind of want to do their own thing. They're not the people who just want to like follow someone forever,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So what's your approach when it comes to like finding those people? And do you just like be like, okay, you're with me for when you're with me. I know you're gonna spread your wings eventually, but like
It's
have a good
so
time while
hard,
we're here.
man. It's very complicated because, I one of the things I've done recently is I've really championed the talent that we have on our team. And I'm like, "Hey, credit to this person who did this thing and stop motion to this." And some people like in private have been like, "Hey, like you should be careful. Someone's going to swoop in and, probably be able to pay them more than you can. Be careful how you talk about like your current talent." And I'm like, I get that. I haven't been burned by that yet. I'm sure it'll happen one day, but at the same time, it's like I have to be honest with myself. If I get a great month or 2 or 3 or year run with somebody, that's fantastic. Is it gonna become part of the business of having to find ways to find new talent that replaces what seem like huge shoes? Yeah. I am seeing a tiny bit of that on, like, our motion graphics side. All I can do is just try to support these people, make this place a creative, fulfilling place, because there's the other side of this, which is, like, just like in design at agency levels, like if you're any kind of studio, whether it's a media studio or a design studio, like there are still deadlines. We try to get an episode out a week of this narrative podcast, and we have 2 other shows in the works. That's a South Park turnaround, man. Like
Yeah.
that is a tough ask. And it is very easy in creative work to burn out. Like it's very easy to do that. And so for me, the most I can do is just make sure like, "Hey, what are your goals? Like, what do you hope to be making? What is it you would like? Oh, you want like more exposure to build your own YouTube thing. Awesome." I think for me, the question, this is where I came to with a lot of this. What am I trying to build? And when I look at like what SuprOrdinary is, like first I had to get right that like that we're a media company. We're trying to build this thing that's large. And then eventually, there's a day where I would love to be able to platform and put more people on in a way that, like, you look at, like, Dropout TV, or you look at, like, the Corridor Boys or the Corridor Crew. I can't remember, the VFX guys who have multiple kinda characters on the show, but they spin off and create their own show. Like, that is where I'd love to get to one day. Am I gonna get there with the current cast of crew we have now? Probably not all of them. But if we can, like, that would be fantastic to help put them on in a way that is, like, synergetic, you know? Like, do the people doing the creative work, especially in what you and I are doing, I don't think they have to be, like, hidden away in the back room, like, "No, no, that's where the production's happening, you don't go back there." No, it's like, let's bring them to the forefront and, like, show that this can be either a long-term place where they can spread those wings, like, "You wanna spread your wings? Let's create the environment where you can do it here." Or, let's make it a platform that it's like, "Cool, we were able to be the springboard for these people who went off and did some good work." So it's like you have to kinda get right with what you're trying to build, and then also with, like, yeah, if you do a good job, it means you gave birth to people who were able to improve their lives too, I guess, you know?
Yeah, no, I've been thinking a lot about this with SuperOrdinary because we got season 1 down. We have not done a great job with our socials, like, it's been an afterthought, and I've kinda been thinking a little bit more about how we approach that. And part of me is like, "Okay, this might be a good opportunity to showcase or champion other artists in a way that, like" for example, say, Pancake episode we're trying to promote, or maybe not even Pancake episode, but just the SuperOrdinary identity in general is, like, taking ordinary things, doing something with them. And if there's another artist out there who's a big fan of SuperOrdinary and is like, "Oh, look what I did with these, like, paper clips."
Yeah.
And maybe that's something, "Oh, we'd love to use that. Can we put it on our, SuperOrdinary post and underneath put, like, artwork by so and so and, like, put a link." So they kinda become part of the SuperOrdinary organization a little bit, like, "Oh, I had a part of pushing SuperOrdinary while also, like, getting some exposure for myself." But I don't know, it's something I've been thinking a lot about as
I
well
mean,
as far
there's
as
there's a
building
lot of
community.
moving parts to it, right? Because you start to ask yourself, like, okay, like, I want to showcase a person and platform them, and then it suddenly becomes like, okay, like logistically, like, what is a pay structure? How do I compensate? And
Yep.
what I'll tell you is this: I don't have the right answers. We're still figuring it out ourselves. But one of the things I know to be true for us anyway is be prepared to invest a little bit of money in not just like in paying the people or compensating for whatever the case is, whether it's a role or a feature or whatever, but also be prepared to be wrong when you make that investment and have to make that investment like a second time for some, you know what I mean? Like I'm learning that, for example, if you make a hire, and you've probably seen this at agencies, and you invest 30 days of time into a person and you're like, yeah, this isn't the fit that we thought it was. And then you have to go back and maybe make another hire. I'm not sure how often you've had to deal with something like that, but I've had to deal with that in the past. And it's like, okay, so that cost me X amount on a salary that didn't really go super far. Maybe we got some output from it, and it cost me like 2, 3 additional months of time. And I'm learning that anytime I'm trying to scale something, I need to factor in additional cost, additional time than just the price tag of one person. And so like that's kind of the balance. And that leads me to like a question for you, man, which is you told me that the kind of impetus for SuprOrdinary was like we have medical bills, right? And how can I make a dent that's like more than just like an annual raise? And I guess that's what we're talking about. Like, how do you balance? How do you think about the balance? So let me throw it back at you. How do you think about balancing creative fulfillment and the need to make money?
Oh man, that is like the age-old question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, and I guess what I told you also comes with the part two a little bit, which had I talked a little bit about in my episode 3 of my series, but for those who haven't seen it. So there was this need for like, I need to make some more money. And I was trying to think of all these different ways, and I just had a daughter come and everything. And then during all that, this is during the pandemic and everything, at the same time, so when I was younger, I used to make music videos with my cousins. That was kinda like my introduction into, you know, video making and all this stuff. So around that time, my one of my cousins had passed away, which was, like, devastating for me. He was, like, one of my ride or dies, and we used to make music videos and everything. And so there was this part of me of, like, I need to find a way to make more money, and then I hit this part of me of, like, "Ah, man, life is short. Am I doing what I want to do? If I passed away tomorrow, how would I feel as far as like, did I do my best work creatively? What does that even mean? Sometimes that feels kind of meaningless. Like, what's this work I'm doing for anyways? And so I think there was just a lot of those questions of like, what do I want to do with these talents that I've developed and everything? And I think that's also why I kind of went this route of trying to create something that was a little more meaningful. And so to go back to your question of like what's that balance? I think if I'm answering this for somebody else, like first I think you need to ask yourself, are you doing this for like therapy? Are you doing this to just like have a moment to paint and do all that? If it is, then do it for that. If you're trying to like do this for a business, if you're trying to make money, then don't blur the lines, I guess. It's like, no, that's what you're trying to do. No, like, okay, I'm trying to make a business doing this, and you have to like start treating it that way. It's not always the most glamorous, but I think when we start blurring the lines too much of like, oh, this is like the thing I love and I want it to always be this thing I can be completely free. It to be like harsh, it's kind of like it's optimistic thinking that you'll never have to compromise on anything or you're not gonna have to, like, do something that you maybe are like, "Ah, I don't really wanna, like, do this, but, we need to, like, be able to do this so we can pay to, like, do something more creative and everything." I think Buck is where I currently work right now. I think they're a good example of this. There's projects that are pay the bills projects that aren't, like, the most creative fulfilling, and you do those type of projects so you can do the big creative projects and maybe not make as much and everything. So, like, I don't know if that's a super good answer. I don't think it really is, but I think I think I'm still trying to figure it out as well. Right now, for me, I'm in the enjoyment part of it. We haven't gotten to the, like, big business part of it yet and trying to include, brand deals and all these things yet. But as a creative, I think those are problems that you have to solve creatively. Like, okay, this brand wants us to push their product into our thing, and they have the way they always do it. Is there a way for us to be more creative with that? That we don't feel like we're selling our soul and being like, in the middle of our story, being like, by the way, check out these things that, you'll love these wipes, da da da. And so that's something I think we'll figure out. Hopefully, as we figure it out, it doesn't feel like we're selling our soul as well. And if it does, I apologize, but we're figuring it out. So,
I think that's a very I appreciate the candid and honesty in that answer, the candidness, because the same thing here, man, you know, and that's like there's the idealist in us, and you and I as like designers and creatives, we want to think of the ideal world. What's the most ideal outcome of the things we work on?
yeah.
So we have to live in that ideal world, but we
I'm a
also
big
need
dreamer. Like, that's the world I live
yeah.
in every I live in the clouds, man. Like, that's but I try to be a little more my wife's more realistic, and she'll bring me down a notch sometimes out of the clouds.
And it's good to have that counter voice, because you know, for me, it's like okay, there's the ideal world, and then there's the pragmatic path to get there, and
Yep.
there is like a nuanced way to balance it, and we're figuring it out. But I will say, you know, having the freedom to do at least some initial exploration, like you've done 6 episodes, season one, super ordinary,
Mhm.
massive success for a debut, dude. Like
Thank you.
very, very well received. And you have now the signal to say, yeah, we're onto something. Let's keep going.
Yep.
How do we make this like a full time thing, right? Like that's how I'm sure.
Well, I
Imagine you're
think
thinking
that's
about
one
it.
thing that I did right, was instead of, like, trying to convince somebody this was something that would work, I just made it and proved first that, like, this making this the way I made it, people it's resonating with people. If I would have tried to just create, like, a pitch, and obviously not everyone can do this because if you're trying to make a film, it's like, if you need funding for it, you gotta make a pitch deck and everything, but man, the age we live in right now is like, we there's a lot of hate on, like, "Oh, man, like, the world today, this and that." Like, man, we live in a pretty spectacular time where you can just, like, go out and make something and, find people who are interested and make something out of it, like, it's I don't know, we take it for granted sometimes, but it's, it was one thing I think I did right, was I just spent some time without posting anything, but just in the trenches trying to figure out what I enjoyed doing, and did the creative part first. I explored tons of shots. I have so much footage that's just buried and not used because I was just experimenting, and that was super fun for me, and then I got to where I was posting it, and then it became real because it wasn't just me messing around and having fun. Then I had to, like, face the reactions and how people felt about it and all this kind of stuff. And, people being interested in it as far as like branding, sponsorships, and things like that. But during that little bit of time before anyone knew about it, while I was still in my secret corners of my own office making it, it was like it was the time to experiment and to try things. So I think that was one thing that I did kind of right.
And that's what I'm seeing a lot in the industry in software design right now too, which is just this lot of polarization because of online media, this evolution of creative work, and the tooling out there. And for me, it's like tune it out, play with some of the tools, and like learn to play again. Learn to just like tuck away. And maybe you're not sharing what you're doing, and you're just kind of like it's a mess. It's a mess back
Yeah.
here, you
And
know.
I do feel for the younger generation sometimes because there's a lot of a lot of pressure to just be like, just post it," which I think is, like, good advice also to just not worry so much and just, like, get in the practice of sharing. But man, I don't know where I would have been if if YouTube was a thing back when I was a kid, and all of a sudden there's this expectation of audience and followers. Like, I probably wouldn't have taken the same path that I took now, but because there wasn't an audience, it was literally us making videos as kids. I did not worry about reception or if this was gonna be good for attention or like anything like that. It was just for the joy of making. And so I'm trying to like tap into that now, even though I am dealing with all that stuff as well. But I think it is good advice, like you were saying, to I know the advice out there is to just post it, just publish it, just share it, but take some time to just enjoy it first. Like,
And
hop on there and make some stuff and don't worry about sharing it right away. Maybe share with your mom or your close friends or someone who can just enjoy it with you without being like critical of it. And just even ask yourself, did I enjoy doing this? Or is there something I would like? Maybe I want to try this instead. So
That's a fantastic, I love that frame and I love that advice. I'm definitely somebody who tries to encourage people to push past feeling cringy to share their work. I see a lot of value in it. I love what you just said though, in regards to that. And I want people to know, like, even when you feel like you've reached a point where you can put stuff out and you feel proud about what you put out, and maybe the reception reciprocates that, you're going to open yourself up to criticisms, to people who like you have no business even listening to. But because it's public, that's how this goes. And I want to ask you, can you recall any of the your show's a smashing success? What have been some of the criticisms that you've opened yourself up to?
yeah, so to start off, I internalize stuff big time. Like
You take
I'm
it hard?
yeah, I'm like I'm my biggest critic for sure, but I mean, unrelated to art, like if I'm driving on the road and someone like flips me off because I did something dumb, it sticks with me like the whole day. Like I just think about it and it makes me feel kind of sick. And I can't just like shrug it off for whatever reason. I haven't been able to like figure out how to do that. And I think I probably care too much about what people think about me. And that's probably what it comes down to, is just caring too much about what people think. Maybe I should just go the opposite way and become a huge polarizing, like just want people to hate me kind of person, and then it'll be easier to not care so much. But yeah, I think right now it's like I have always been somewhat well liked with the people I know, and so it's like I hang on to that like wanting to be liked. And it's just human, I guess. But when I first posted episode 1, it definitely blew up bigger than I thought it was going to. And it was a design episode. And the funny thing about it was like I was trying to just be experimental and just try something without giving too much thought, and because I should follow that advice you were giving of like you should just post something, you should just publish something, because I think about things way too long and then they just die and they never leave my mind or they never leave my computer because they're not perfect or they're not ready. So when I was designing for Logan's Heroes, part of me was just like, all right, it's not perfect. I know it's not maybe like the most well thought out or best design in the world, but I did it and here it is. And I definitely got some like feedback. I mean, not so 99% of the comments were 100% positive, but that 1% stuck with me.
It does, it does. They're like, "What? That was garbage. It's worse than it was."
Yeah. Like those few comments that were like, it was about the design, which that wasn't bad because like I deal with that every day. That's just like critique, you know? And so I was like, okay, I can see what they're saying, blah, blah. But then there was the comments that were like, man, this guy's so into himself thinking that he can just go and like change this. They don't need your this and that. And that hurt. I was just like, ah, man, I wasn't. And they're like, oh, this is just an opportunity for you to go film yourself and show it to everybody. You know, just like, ah, man, like some of that stuff like really kind of hurt a little bit and stuck with me and made me feel kind of sick and just, I don't know. After the first post, I felt like I should have been celebrating, but I felt so much anxiety, and
Did you?
I don't feel anxiety very often. I don't consider myself a very anxious person. I'm pretty laid back. But man, I felt anxiety, and I had to stay out of those comments because even the positive ones, like I said, 99% was positive. There was so many positive things that I started feeling the pressure. Like, I already had episode 2 done, which was, like, the rock episode, and I had made that one before finishing, um, the first episode. So it was a little more rough. We had, like the sound wasn't the best because we were still trying to figure it out. We had, like, one of those, like, home camcorders for half of it because we were trying to have, like, 2 cameras and I only had 1 nice one. So it was a bit of a mess, and after seeing all these comments like, "Oh, this is, like, Netflix level, blah, 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 Wes Anderson, this and that," I started getting really anxious that like, "Oh, man, the second episode has nothing to do with design." And it's like, there's a lot of imperfections in it. It's a little messy. And I'm like, I don't know how this one's gonna go. And so there was this like, I finally figured out how to be myself and make something, and then and not to worry about what people were gonna think. And now all of a sudden I was seeing what everybody thinks. And then I was stuck with like, how do I get back to not worrying again what people think? And that took some time to figure out.
You know what? I love this right now. So what's really cool about you and I chatting here is we're talking about a topic that I haven't dived into in a lot of detail because a lot of people we're talking to, designers, founders, software design stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I'm learning a lot from there. We are talking about media, specifically creative media. And so here's what I want to know. First video goes bonkers on YouTube. You feel the pressure, you see the criticisms, you see the number go up. Second video goes out. Number goes up, but a little bit less than video one. And there had to be a little bit of like, oh my God. And then like, and all the pressure. So tell me about the like mental evolution that you went through from video one to two to where you're at episode 6 now, being finished.
So when I finished episode 1 and 2, I had showed them to my work because there was a little section in there that was showing some of the projects I'd worked on. Wanted to make sure I didn't have any issues with NDAs and stuff like that. So spreads around my work at Buck. Everyone friggin' loves it. It makes its way to like the guy who owns the company, Ryan Honey. He reached out to me. He's like, I love what you're making. This is absolutely amazing. I want to support you. Da, 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 da. So going into episode 3 and 4, he was giving me some time off work to work on these and like was really supporting me doing it. So there was this pressure of like, I need to prove that this is going to work. So the first one goes off. Everyone's excited. They're like, this is amazing. This is doing better than we thought. Second one doesn't go so well. And I started feeling this like, oh man, okay, it's one thing if it was a fluke. I know they're good, but now I feel like I need to prove to other people that this is worth investing into, I guess, which added a lot of pressure. And also to give some context, they were totally fine. Like they were just like, no, this is just part of it. Like this is just we understand. Like this is the long haul. And but for me, I was just like, I don't like this is like the dream come true. My work is allowing me time off to work on this thing and I'm working on it and this is awesome, but I don't want them to be like this isn't really working out anymore. So like back to work. That was a lot of added pressure. For me personally, I did feel like I had made something I was proud of. And I think if I wouldn't have done that, there would have been a lot more self-doubt. But for me, I was like, it's one of those things that'll catch eventually. That's how I've always felt. Because the subsequent episodes haven't done as big as the first one, but still in my mind, I'm like, it'll catch eventually. They're all good episodes. I feel proud of all of them. And a lot of them I like more than the first one. For whatever reason, the first one just took off. But I feel like the other ones are just as interesting. But there was some algorithm stuff I learned too. There are some people who reached out to me like, oh, you shouldn't be posting your trailers in between because you're killing your algorithm and this and
I
that. It's like,
noticed you got rid of the trailers.
I did, and that was part of it. There was a guy who does YouTube consulting, and he gave me some free advice. He's like, "Love what you're doing. Just want to give you some advice. Every time you post a trailer in between an episode, obviously your views aren't going to be as high, but the algorithm doesn't know that. It's just seeing that you posted a video that got way lower views. So when you post your next episode, it doesn't push it as much. So that could have had a big part of what happened. We're still putting the trailers out there, just not on the channel itself. I got to the point where I'm creatively, I feel like I'm figuring it out. The voice, the storytelling, all feels great. Now I got to play the game a little bit. I got to figure out all these different, things with marketing and short form, which I'm definitely way behind on the short form side of things. I'm trying to figure that out as well. But it's kind of fun because I don't have to think about it so hard. And it's kind of like I could throw something out, see if the fish bite, and if they don't, like try it again. It's kind of fun.
So what got me into short form was because it was so YouTube felt like Hollywood years ago. In my mind, I'm like, if I'm going to put something on YouTube, it's got to be my like debut.
Well, and it's like your library of content. Yeah, you want it to
Right.
be evergreen.
I have this like intro I spent a few months on. It was like literally the first 90, 60-second intro of like a YouTube video I was going to make around design. This was from maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that thing never saw the light of day. It wasn't perfect enough, and I'll air it here. And then finally, like TikTok came around, and it was the pandemic, and I was like, I'm just gonna post just yapping, This is like, it's TikTok. People are dancing. No one cares.
Yeah.
And so like there was this feeling of permission that I was just like, I can just do this and it doesn't matter. And it really led me into getting comfortable experimenting with just creating ideas, like getting experimenting in public, which is really
Yep.
terrifying concept.
It is, but it's also liberating, and I think we're starting to learn that because me and my brother are trying out some stuff now, and we're both kind of perfectionists, and our first content we put out there feels too polished still, and so we're like, "We just gotta loosen up." Like, we have all these, like, funny random ideas, and then we just, like, tighten up too much when we're trying to, like, get it out there, and so you'll see, I'm sure in the coming weeks, we have a few ideas that are very loose that we'll just throw out there.
When you're experimenting on short form, what I've learned, and I think this has become somewhat conventional wisdom these days, is you're gonna throw stuff out. Like, for example, you were saying, "Hey, we find other people who do, like, interesting, practical, creative videos or, adjacent to that something, and we wanna show that stuff." And so maybe one day you find yourself collecting, consuming to create. You go and find these people who are creating cool little creations, and, maybe one day you make a video and you're like, "Hey, check out, like, if like, here's how we kinda did this shot in our episode, and here's some people doing things in really interesting ways." And maybe that's like a very like, a short form is a practice, an exercise in brevity. That's the first thing. Short form is an exercise in brevity. You wanna tell such big stories, and then you have to be like, "Holy crap, how do I truly condense this down into its core parts to still get the effect or tell the story?" So that's the first part. And the second is, let's say you take that idea and you get to show a little bit of super ordinary video, and then you get to kind of show some other people doing dope stuff, and maybe that has an uptick. You're like, "Wait, people liked that." If you see something like that, that has the potential to become a recurring, we'll call it series,
Uh,
that suddenly makes it easy for people to go, "Yeah, I know what I'm coming over here to Super Ordinary's Instagram for, because 'cause they're talking, like, different ways, not just them, but creative people doing interesting ways to put stuff together. Oh, by the way, like," and then when every time they drop a video, they'll drop a trailer, and I get to go watch them work too, you know?
yeah.
So, all that to say, look for your first flagship series, I would say, as you're doing experiments, different formats, which one of those takes can be, like, reproducible into something that your Instagram channel becomes more known for.
That's great. I think we actually have a few things on the dock that are along those lines, so it sounds like we're on the right track. So when I'm on TikTok or Instagram, I have this aversion to being sold to about anything. The moment I feel like it's someone's trying to sell me something, I, like, swipe away. And it's just like, it's I don't know. I don't know why. I just have maybe other people like it, but I just have an aversion to it. There's a part of me that's like, "Oh, yeah, obviously I wanna use short form to push people to my YouTube page." But in a way, when we've tried it, when I watch back, I'm like, "It kinda feels like I'm trying to sell something to people." Like, I'm showing you this thing, but the thing I'm trying to sell you is like, "Go over here, check out my thing." Should I try to be pushing people to the YouTube, or should I just be creating something that's great in and of itself on short form with the goal of, like, just trying to get more awareness about Super Ordinary as a brand? And
Both, and here's how I would do it, man. There's a hard sell and there's a soft sell, and I would do more soft selling than hard selling. So a soft sell is this. The soft sell is that video series idea, let's expand upon it, where you show some dope people, and then in between there, you're like, "And for our second episode of this is how we got this shot," and you show something they haven't seen, still exercise in brevity. You make mention that it's on YouTube, but you're not like, "Hey, go watch it. Hey, go subscribe." You're just like, "Here's dope people. We're dope too. Here's how we did a thing," and then da. And they're gonna be like, "Oh, I wanna go, like, actually watch more of that." So maybe there's a small cliffhanger, maybe there's some sort of, like, reason that they're gonna be like, "Yeah, that's cool. Let me go check out the final version." So maybe you don't show the, like, and you can play with how you do this, but maybe you don't show, like, the end result, but you show how you got the shot, and they're gonna go and check it out. That's a soft sell, you didn't ask for it. But then the hard sell, what I would say is, you're funny, man. Like, you have a very good delivery of your humor in some of these moments, like, even from, like, the hair episode, and you're like, "It's not creepy, it's art." Like, the little deliveries are so good that I would say, don't be afraid to hard sell occasionally. but use that humor when you're selling. Like acknowledge that you're hard selling and it's cringy,
So
you know?
that's the thing of, like, do I just lean into it so hard
Yeah.
that it's, like, it's funny because it's, like, yeah, just
I'm a big D&D guy. I follow a lot of creators, Critical Role, and they're hilarious about how they do their sponsorships or ads. They're like, and they just lean into it in the cheesiest way. And you kind of you stay through the segment because you're like, okay, like what cheesy thing are they doing around this time?
and maybe the big difference is, like, there's no I'm not trying to, like, trick you into anything. It's like, you know, you know what the intentions are, and so there's because sometimes, when creators are sponsoring something, it's like it feels like you're trying to be tricked or, not tricked, but just, like, convinced about something, and
There's marketing blinders all over, and that's what we've learned too, man, is like it's yeah, you gotta figure out the way to do it. But and some
it's
people
funny
know
though because when I'm making stuff, it's like, "But I'm not one of those guys, like, I'm one of you guys, like, I'm a I mean, make it I'm not like a brand or I'm not one of, these big companies," but sometimes it feels that way where I'm like,
well, you're gonna get hit with it. They're gonna one day someone, you're a bona fide filmmaker and they're gonna be like, "This influencer out
"Yeah."
here," and you're gonna be like, you're gonna die a little bit inside
Do
and
you okay, this is maybe a personal question, but when you tell people what you how do you ever say you're like an influencer or YouTuber? Do you say is there like a shame there for you to say those things?
I think there was a tiny shame in saying I was an influencer at one point because it just felt kinda icky. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
there's like a stigma there.
But more importantly, today especially, and in the last, like, year or 2, it doesn't do me a very good service in certain company. Like, if I'm talking to brands or I'm talking to other business owners, saying I'm an influencer isn't quite accurate anymore. It's like I'm running a media company, and we also build software, but we're not an agency because we do it all in-house. It's all our own stuff. So it's very hard to like first accurately. So it kind of changes based on who I'm talking to. But at the end of the day, the like very generic answer is like, we're an internet media company. It's what we do. And I would recommend to other people who might be listening that even if you did just start out posting videos on Instagram or YouTube, I would still refer to myself as that if you've made a dollar, like, because I think it allows you to think bigger internally too. Like, you kinda have to say it out loud to
No,
believe
that's
it,
very true.
Like, and then the same what goes like, I'm a freelancer or you a design agency, and it's like the way you talk about it is going to eventually echo through all the actions and decisions and things you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because when I first started working on episodes, I totally had this aversion to being well, I'm trying to start a YouTube
I'm
channel
a
or, like, this, like,
YouTuber.
35-year-old man being like, "I'm making a YouTube channel," as I'm trying to, like, convince people to be in the video or, like, when I was trying to talk to Logan's Heroes and stuff. But at the same time, I didn't want to sound like I was this big production company and might make them feel, they're like, "I don't know if I wanna be involved in this," or whatever.
Right, because then suddenly it's like, "Oh, if you guys are this big thing, then let's talk about money and let's get all the," and you're like, "No, no, no, we're an indie
Yeah.
media," like, you gotta throw all the it's a thing, dude.
No, but that's a good way to phrase it. There's a part of me that was like, "Should I be, ashamed of what I am? Like, am I just a YouTuber and should I just" because I actually love the YouTube community in general, and I've really grown to, like, appreciate that community, and I was like, I almost feel ashamed of being ashamed.
You're gonna get a lot of labels. Let's talk about labels for a second. This is great because you're an art director at Buck, correct? Yeah, and this has been my dilemma, man. Like, I'm a designer. I can code. Not great, but, like, enough to build products that get bought. I make media. Now I don't edit my own videos anymore, but I used to be the only person who would edit my videos. Like, I'm moving out of certain productions so I can focus on other things, and now it's like I have existential crises about, what am I the author of? I've gone through this kinda evolution of that part of it. There are art directors who are very much in the day-to-day, get their hands dirty all day long, they're contributors. Then there are some art directors who, do a lot less of that, and I find myself like I almost call myself like an accidental creative director today, because it's a lot of what I've been doing more and more. How do you think about the labels of what you do? Like, what do you tell people you do at Buck? Or how do you describe that to people not in the field?
I mean, right now, I feel like because it's so new, I still describe myself as a graphic designer or art director most of the time, which, at some point that'll change when SuprOrdinary is like the full-time, all-time gig. Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I feel like as I become even an art director, sometimes it feels like n it's a more impressive title, but it feels a little less like hands-on designery, and I never wanna be completely hands-off or not creating.
Are you just a manager,
Yeah,
Devin?
you're just making decks all the time, like, cool guy. Um, but at the same time, as you get older, it's like being hands-on all the time can get really exhausting, and it is appealing to be, like, helping shepherd other designers to get the most out of their creativity and everything. I don't know, I'm trying to just stick more like I'm a creative as far as mindset goes, like, I'm a creative because that encompasses and even as I was coming up as a designer, I tried to think in those terms because calling myself a designer, I think, put myself too much in a category or a bucket, like, a designer uses this software and they do this kinda thing, and the whole reason I got into motion design was because I saw stuff that Buck was doing, and they were using puppets, and they were using, stop motion and all these things, which was like, "Well, that's what I wanna do." Like, I want to, like, not just be on a computer all the time, but I wanna be, like, mixing mediums a little bit, and so I always thought of myself as a creative more so than just a designer, and I think that kinda helped me solve problems in unique ways as well. I don't know if that is something for anybody else, designers out there that it's easy to be like, "Oh, okay, I'm a designer and this is a software that a designer uses." But in the end, you're just a problem solver, and there's a lot of different ways to solve a problem. It doesn't always have to be digital, and sometimes clients will be open to that if you present that to them. Not all the time, but, it's really interesting if you allow yourself to be more open on how to solve a problem, what things clients might be receptive to.
It's funny. I think I spammed the absolute shit out of your Instagram DMs. I was like,
It
"Dude,
worked though, I'll tell
I
you.
first episode was incredible." I'm like, "Man, you are inspiring the crap out of me." And I look back and I'm like, "Oh, dude." I showed my wife. I was like, I think I was a little extra."
Well, and I'm not promoting this to anybody to do the same thing, but I will say it worked because during that time, I was getting, like, a ton of messages. I was trying to get back to everybody, and I was trying to just be a good person and, like, respond. But the fact that you kept going and going, eventually I was like, "Well, who's this Tommy guy? Like, keeps messaging me." Then I was like then we finally talked, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So,
He's not as crazy as these DMs make him seem. I guess I'll talk to
it
him.
was more so I was overwhelmed at the time with how many,
Yeah.
uh, offers people were giving me to, like, help out with their brand and things like that. So there was just a lot. So it worked. We're here now, and I'm talking to you, and it's been like, you're a super cool guy, and, like, I wouldn't mind meeting in person one day if we ever that ever happens, but
See, so for all
because
the
'cause you're just
audience
in
members,
Arizona, right? You're not
I'm
too
in
far away.
Arizona, you're in, Utah, I think.
Yep. So we're not too far away.
Yeah. Oh, we'll make this happen. And because I really wanna see hands-on how you direct, how you create. Let me ask you a question. Last to top off the label combo, how do you feel when I call you a filmmaker?
So that one's actually interesting. I actually love that, but it's not something I would have ever called myself.
Do you feel like after SuprOrdinary, do you feel like a filmmaker right now? Do you feel like do you
I still don't feel like a filmmaker. I
okay.
don't know what that will take, I guess, but people call me that, like, that's how they refer to me more so than anything else is, like, a filmmaker, and they refer to my episodes as, like, short films or things like that. I think the only reason I don't feel like a filmmaker, and this is, like, a weird thing to say based on what SuprOrdinary stands for, is because I don't have, like, formal education in being a filmmaker or, like so it's not like I came up being like, "I wanna be a filmmaker. This is what I'm gonna be." It's like I kinda just slipped into this more filmmaker role, and now that is exactly what I'm doing now pretty much, is exactly what a filmmaker would do, and, like, going into season 2, me and my brother are trying to storyboard more and, like, be a little more organized, doing all the things that filmmakers probably do now, or just discovering why it's beneficial. But I don't mind it. It's again, it's like I try not to put myself in one box because I like to add a lot of motion design and things that's not typical in a regular film, I guess. And I think that's interesting to me.
So did you tell yourself, "I wanna be a designer"? Was that like a thing that you said out loud or internally once?
No, it's not actually. So the way I came about design was an interesting road because I used to paint a lot in high school and I used to do videos with my cousins. Those were like my creative outlets. But I didn't see I was from a small farm town. I didn't really see a path for me. It wasn't obvious. It's not like people were extremely discouraging, but they didn't know either. Like the adults in my life. Yeah, my parents were very supportive of whatever I wanted to do, but like I talked to counselors at my high school and they'd be like, "Well, you could be an art teacher." That's all I know. It's like no one really knew any creative paths. And so even like Hollywood was like some distant land far away that like I had no idea how to get into that. And so as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I remember it was like a senior girl gave me a disc that had like a pirated version of Photoshop on it. And I started messing around with the software a bit. And that's kind of when I first learned about Photoshop and design. Someone came to our school from one of the nearby colleges and he was like one of the professors of design. So I kind of got into it, but I was also interested in being like a seminary teacher, like a religious teacher. And in order to like take that path, you had to earn a degree in something, a bachelor's in something. So I was like, well, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to be this other thing. But then I ended up just falling in love with design along the way. So and I just kind of stuck with it from there. But I was never like, I'm going to be a designer. It was like, I'm going to be a seminary teacher and I just got to do this thing. So
Well, and because it's funny, I'm the same way. I became a designer because I was trying to be a developer. I wanted to build products, and I was not great at coding. In fact, I kinda hated debugging, which a lot of my code sucked, so most of the time was spent debugging. And then the field opened up for more user interface work, and I was like, "That seems like that's right up my alley." And so I find it funny when you say, "I don't say I'm gonna be a filmmaker. I don't say I'm gonna be a designer, yet here we are." And when you think about labels, I said I was gonna top it off, but you think about who am I making this media for? And that has been such a hard question for me to answer for this show because it's like, well, designers are typically the people paying attention, and then there's design adjacent roles, product managers, developers, general creatives. But it's like, I guess I'm making it for anyone who's ever thought about creativity on the internet. And it's like, is that actually a good persona?
I'm in the same boat because, and I think it's okay for us to not have it so narrowed down right off the gate. Like, I think it's okay for things to organically be figured out along the way. And that's kind of how I made my episodes was just, I'm going to organically let it kind of figure itself out. But I'm in the same boat. I made the first episode and so much of the audience was like designers. And they're like, I'm excited about this. And I think everyone thought it was going to be like a design makeover show. And I was like, duh, that's like not really what I want to make. And that was the biggest thing in my head I had to remember. It's like, that's not really what I want to make. I want to be able to like explore all these avenues of creativity, not just design. I want to do design along the way. I love design. It'll always be part of the series. But for the thing that I wanted to enjoy and the thing I wanted to make, it's like this more broad spectrum. And I started getting a lot of messages from people who are like, I always loved creativity. I chose this field instead. And I always kind of regretted it or wished I would have like tried this. And seeing your series has kind of given me some inspiration to at least like dip my toes back in the water. And so I think there's a space for, yes, there's the professional creatives. And I always want my episodes to appeal to professional creatives. And I think that's why I shoot the way I do, because those who enjoy that stuff can oogle and ogle over like, oh, I love these shots. I love these. They can appreciate it. I don't think I'm going to ever dive in super deep on how to create a brand. I think I will do that on the side. Like that will be a separate thing that if someone wants to know more, there'll be a place for that. But I think my approach so far has been I want to take creativity and things that might feel niche, like pancake art making, and bring that to the masses. Bring it to someone who like can enjoy that, whether they know anything about creativity or not, and feel inspired and feel like it's maybe like, oh, creativity is approachable, I guess, because you can do it with anything around you. You don't have to have this or that. So I don't know if that's the best. I don't know if that's the best strategy yet. We'll see. Um, it's like it would have been easier to just to niche down to graphic design specifically, but for now, that's the way I'm approaching it.
Well, and it taps into kind of the absurdity that works really well as a visual spectacle. And so let's get into the weeds for a second.
Yeah.
I look at my videos right now, and like I said, I'm trying to prioritize a little bit of the narrative crafting, a new kind of it's very new for me to do it this way. And then we're trying to bring some good visuals into the mix. So there's a lot of MoGraph.
Uh-huh.
But then I look at
Which
your
looks
work.
awesome, by the way. After I saw some episodes, I was like, dang.
The team's gonna
Like,
be stoked, and I may, I don't know if you watched one or skimmed it. I may ask you for a point of feedback. And by the way, kind, not nice is our saying. I don't want niceness. I want you to be kind. Help me not suck if as fast as possible. But to get to the question, when I look at something like the hair episode, which
mhm.
scared my mom, by the way, until she saw the final product. She was stoked. She was like, "This is weird." And then she watched. She's like, "Oh," and I was like, "Okay, mom, you get it.
This
It
is
just took
still
a moment."
weird, but it's fun too now.
And so we watched it, and the opening with, I think it was your wife and the hair and the kind of like music video of it all, and then sometimes you'll like cut like the Brady Bunch squares of you do some great work. A lot of it is, I think most of it's very practical. So my question to you is, walk me through the process for creating that music shot, the music video of the hair scene.
So the way my mind has always worked is if I can hear something, I can see it. And so if I have a song picked out or something like that, visuals pop into my head so easy. I don't know if that's how many people work, but at least for me, that's how it is. So once I kind of had a song picked out, those visuals just kind of came to me. And I think the way they come to you is exposing yourself to other uh, good artworks or good videos and things like that, because then you get this library of ideas in your head that you can kind of cherry pick from and make your own. That process, there was an idea of like, okay, the other two episodes, like one was nature, one had this kind of Wes Anderson-y feel. I want to do this thing that just like pops and like takes you by surprise because it starts out kind of dark and moody, and I just want it to be like this poppy music video vibe. So I kind of had an idea of what I was gonna do, but it's just my garage, and we went in there, and you got to give yourself time to experiment because it's not going to turn out the way you envision all the time, which it didn't. So a lot of the shots I thought I was going to do, I didn't do. Some of the shots I didn't think I was going to do ended up turning out better than I thought. So I had to just get in the garage, and I brought, my brother and my other sister. She wanted to kind of see what was going on, so we invited her to come help out, and we just messed around with shots, like moving the camera different angles. So Kenzie's pregnant at the time too, so she couldn't do a lot of moving. In fact, I think she got pretty winded after doing some of those hair flips, and I was
She's
like,
like, "Are we
"Nah,
done
is
yet?"
this abusive? Like, should I be making my pregnant wife be doing these hair flips over and over because it's not quite right?" But yeah, it was just like it was a lot of experimenting and then getting in the edit and trying stuff out, moving stuff around, and then I did have to go back and try a few more things, which isn't the most productive way of working, but as far as like creative experimentation, it's a good way to be. So I didn't have like a storyboard or I had a bit of a shot list, but not a storyboard.
Do you
I
storyboard ever for any of the
I haven't
shots?
yet. I haven't yet,
Interesting.
but I'm gonna try a version of storyboarding into season 2. I think it'll be storyboarding, but it might be a little less visual and more like an audio storyboard. Because, like I say, when I have audio laid down, I can envision things. So, and I can figure out the pacing of things as well.
Do
So
you script?
as far for the voiceover, I write scripts for the voiceover, but anything
Do you
that's
do you
like,
script do you script shots, like bullet points, like,
oh,
hair montage?
pretty rough. Yeah, it'll. Like I knew I was gonna do the intro. I knew I was gonna do, but a lot of the time you don't know how these projects are gonna turn out. That's part of the hard part. Is like, so for example, for the pancake episode, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then when things didn't turn out how I thought they were gonna turn out, I had to like derail a bit and think of a new way to do things. The Rock one, so like the second episode, we had no idea what we were gonna like make or run into. So it was really hard to create, a layout of what the video is gonna be when you just part of the video is just going up and seeing what you can make. So it's like, you have basic storytelling in your head of like, okay, I need how we introduce the concept, going to do the thing, doing the thing, having a wrap up. But when you're doing these, non-scripted ideas, you don't know how things are going to turn out. And that's part of the creative challenge, I think, as well.
That's what I'm finding is true for this. We'll film these interviews or we'll film the on location for our other series. And then I have to kind of watch it and find the story and then build the
Yeah.
narrative around it,
And I
right?
think I think the skill, like there's the skill of being able to storyboard something out, which is an incredible skill. And if you can follow through with a story and it turn out how you want, it's amazing. There's also a skill of being able to react to your environment when you're there, which I think is extremely important because I have had so many shots where I have it in my head and then I get there and shoot it and like that did not look like I just maybe not I don't have the skills to make it look how I wanted it to, but now I need to pivot because that's not having the impact I wanted it to or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's refreshing to hear you say that because I feel like I run into that a lot. How much of storytelling do you find in your skill set of presenting designs, ideas, concepts to clients? How much overlap, and is there anything that's like a key difference between the media that you're producing now and delivering ideas to clients?
I I had a creative director one time kinda like show me how he did decks, and it really changed my perception of presenting work to clients. Because like when I was helping build decks early on in my design career, it's like you were just trying to show in the most pretty way the stuff that you made so they'd be impressed. When he built a deck, he was building a story and like he'd show like the genesis of a logo idea and have it slide by slide kind of build and change. And so without even having to explain it visually, you could like see, oh, this is where this has come from. And this is now I get the idea of the logo. And so he showed me very quickly and very visually how presenting an idea is a presentation. It is a story that you're trying to tell, and it shouldn't be treated as anything else. I was talking to my brother about this because he's an animator and he's made, um, reels and things like that for his trying to present his animations or like character designs and stuff. And all the advice he was given was sort of the opposite. And I was always trying to give him the opposite advice. Like, you are presenting, and why not present your work in the most, you know, creative? Like the presentation should be just as creative as the work itself. That's coming from a designer's perspective. I think for other artists, it's like, no, the work should speak for itself, which if it's good work, it will. But why not present it in the best presentation you possibly can? One thing that was really interesting when I released episode one is how many companies reached out to me wanting that same thing. And I was like, man, if I was trying to continue doing design work, this is a good way to do it. Like, I did this video that showed the process, that told the story, and so many companies got interested in me as a designer wanting to do work for them because they're like, you know how to make this brand come to life. It doesn't even mean like that they love the design at the end, but I think they got invested and felt like I could represent them in that same way. So I just kind of opened up my eyes. It's like, man, if I was going to try to get out there as a designer now, I'd probably try to do something like this because that would like get people on your board faster than trying to direct them to like a portfolio might, like one good project like this has done more for me than a portfolio.
We're seeing some great collaborations like Fonz Mans, if you're familiar with him at all. He does some great, he's made a name for himself on certain social platforms for being a great designer. He'll partner with companies, he'll kind of show the process. And it's almost, it becomes the same way you might see, like a Kid Super collaboration with such and such. It's almost like you see this, like, cool, noteworthy designer collaboration with Contra or with some, Framer or somebody, and it's an interesting, it's something to call out. I'll dive deep into this on the
Would
episode.
you hire someone, or when you're looking at someone, do you look at portfolios or do you look through their social media, like, work?
I have been hiring on social media primarily. I typically look for, I say, "Hey, show me like your 4 or 5 best pieces of work that you're proud of, and let's start there." And I wanna see outputs. I don't, I wanna see, we can, because we'll get into the details if we get into a conversation, but, like, starting out, like, show me what's cool. Let me see what you're sharing. Let me see what you're working on. How about you?
No, that's one thing I'm starting to realize, like, when someone wants to show me their work, the first place I go to is to see their work on their social as a first way in. Like you said, after you see that, then you might wanna see in more detail how they'd actually pull off, a project in more detail and everything. But it's interesting because my first portfolio was a physical book. I don't think anybody saw that. It was like a good project to make and learn how to make it, but even out the
You went
gates,
and got, like at Staples, like a binded book with,
oh
like,
man,
your
it was,
work?
like, better than Staples. I got, like, I was, like, so excited about this thing. It's like a canvas, like, covered book with, like, these nice printed pages and everything. So it was like a work of art in and of itself. But that was just because, like, that was just, I think the way the university taught it was, "Oh, yeah, you gotta make your portfolio book," you know? And it did teach me to, like, organize my projects in a way that looked nice, so I didn't just have, like, a scattering of
Yeah.
images, but I actually, like, I found a good way to present on my projects and, like, photographed certain ones and things like that. Yeah, it's interesting now because I've noticed for myself, I first look at people's Instagrams or whatever, wherever they might have their work first as a first way in.
The way of creative work, I think it's changing a lot, and it's going in a lot of different directions, and, it's just really interesting to see the new chapters opening up from a lot of people like you and I and a number of other folks. People are getting into coding, they're building their own products, their own studios, their own, media companies, and I agree with you. There's never been a better time to be able to do it. There's never been a better time for the little person to not have to get, the number of gatekeepers is so much smaller now. And I think that's really important. And I think it's easy to get kind of cynical about some of the trade-offs that brings. So it's really nice to hear from people who are just kind of figuring it out. And you and I both don't have answers. I think people would look at you and I and say they have it figured out. And you and I are here saying we don't have a clue.
That is like I don't know how many times I have to tell, like, people will ask me for advice. "I'm doing a documentary, like, what's your," I've never made a documentary before, like, I don't know what to tell you. So I am, yeah, it's like we're figuring it out too, but I think, like you said, we're in a new age of creativity. There's the rise of AI and all these things that can feel so intimidating, but I feel like because of the rise of all these things, there's never been a better time for, like, the human side of things to come out. If you can stay to where you're not letting AI intimidate you, doesn't mean you have to, like, embrace it or whatever, like, if you don't want to. But I think there's always gonna be a place for people who want to be creative, because I think there's always gonna be people who are interested in the human side of creativity. There's always gonna be the
Mhm.
spectacle. There's always gonna be, yeah, there's gonna be jobs replaced with all this stuff as well, which is, like, sad, but there's gonna be opportunities that come up that were never there before. I hope there's animators who can make an animated film with a small team, and then we can see some of those stories, and you don't need millions and millions of dollars to create this budget. That's, like, some of the upsides, hopefully, is we get to see some more of these things, and more people can maybe start making, the stuff that they've been wanting to make. And it might just be because 'cause I'm a creative. I try to base, like, how I feel about things, or I try to believe that way, and I feel something, there's other people that feel the same way, and when I'm scrolling through and I see something's made from AI, the amount I care is very little, and I scroll right past. And it's like interesting to see, but I don't care that much because I think I when I see someone do something incredible, I'm amazed by it because it's another human that we're on the same level, and I'm seeing that someone on the same level as me has done something amazing, and that's amazing to me. When I watch people play sports and they do something amazing, that's why it's incredible 'cause, it's like, "Oh, we're humans. I'm just like you, but you just did this amazing thing." If it's a robot shooting a full court shot over and over with complete accuracy, and it's like, "Well, that's I'm glad you got that dialed in, like, that's cool," but, like, I
You're a
wanna see
robot.
yeah, you're a robot, congratulations. I think it's the same thing when you see, like, an AI image made. Some of it's, like, the spectacle, and it's really interesting to see, but I'm not impressed. I'm not like, "Wow," like, "Bravo, AI." It's just like, "Oh," like, that's it's cool that it's made and it can be made so fast, but we're not on the same level. Like, you're a computer, you're and so I the amount I care is a lot less. I feel like you're doing something similar to what I'm trying to do and not do things the way they've always been done. When I watched the interview, that you had done, I was that was the thing that stood out to me. It was like, "Oh, this took a bit of effort. This could have been really low effort interview style, just showing the back and forth, but you put in all this effort, and I I feel like that is the opposite of what everyone's trying to do right now. Everyone's trying to find the lowest effort way to do something. I don't know if that's gonna pay off, but that is also kinda what I'm trying to do. I took, like, ordinary things and did, like, the highest effort, like, possible sometimes with some of these things. Um, but I think that is something that'll pay off as people take the paths of least resistance. Sometimes taking those the opposite way, will help you stand out. It's definitely gonna make you have a lot more work, and it's like, is this paying off? I don't know, maybe we should, like, cut back on some of these visuals, but I will say that's one thing that really stood out to me when I watched it, was just like, "Okay, yeah, like, this took effort, and it can be glued, and that's for sure." So, bravo on that. We'll figure it out together. I don't know, maybe we'll both be like, "Oh, man, we're spending so much time, and we have, like, no views, so let's, like, go hop on the AI train."
All right, we're full AI bros now. Here
Yeah.
we go. This was one of my favorite conversations of the year, probably because it resonated so closely with the work I'm doing right now. And what he discovered, like I did, is that the work resonates the most when you're making something that you'd actually enjoy, which sounds obvious, but try doing that when you have algorithms whispering in one ear and unpaid bills in the other. And scaling creative work is a lot easier when you accept help. Devin made most of his episodes solo. That's design, filming, editing, everything. And he quickly learned that that was not sustainable. I had to learn that lesson too. But the moment you bring other people in, you risk diluting the part that made it so special to you. And there is no clean answer here. We are all just kind of figuring it out. Devin's still processing the Filmmaker label, and I'm still processing Media Lab Founder, whatever that means. But maybe the labels don't really matter. Maybe what matters is we're making something we care about for people who care about the same thing. And we're pretty honest about not having any of it figured out. And I don't think most people do. Not even the people whose work you admire the most. I'll see you next time.